All right, in the field house with Coach Peavy. And Coach, last week I got to make it out to your game and got to watch half of it. You guys took on Southside, huge crowd, big rivalry game. Just take us back to last Friday night and how it all transpired.
Yeah, like you said, it was homecoming. A lot of things went on. We had a really good week and had a great week of practice too. And it was a great atmosphere. Like you said, there was a huge crowd there, and we started off kind of rough. We missed where we wanted to kick it. They got a big kick return on us, and started the game off. They started the game off on our 40, and they drove down and scored, and we kind of answered it and drove right back down and got the ball inside the 10 and turned it over to them. And so we kind of started off pretty rough, and but later on we started settling down and making some plays, and our defense I thought played really well, and their defense played really well, and so we struggled offensively to get things going, but we had a couple opportunities, some big passes that we just didn't catch. We overthrew them, one time too, and had some chances, and our defense picked up a couple turnovers for us to keep giving us a chance, and we didn't capitalize on them, and ended up losing the game 21-10, and probably a little bit closer than it seems, but because we did have some chances, and we just got to find a way to make those kind of plays to win a football game. So, but our kids, they're playing really hard, and they're giving us all they have. We just got to put it together for 48 minutes and see if we can figure it out.
It's one thing I noticed, you kids on both sides of the ball was playing their guts out last Friday night. Talk about some of those guys that kind of stood out. Effort. We don't live in a society where it's always that way. Sometimes when things ain't going your way, a lot of guys want to pack it in and quit, but I seen effort when I was there.
That's what I'm most proud of, is that things hadn't gone our way, and I felt like week one we didn't play as hard as we could play, and I think our coaches have done a really good job of making sure that the kids are playing hard, and so I feel really good about that, and I felt like we've played harder and harder every week. So I am proud of that, but on the defensive side, Garrett Parker's picked off a couple passes the last couple weeks in a row, and he's a kid that didn't even play football last year, so he's done a really good job at corner, and Jackson McCall had a pick a week or so ago, and has done a really good job back there in the secondary too, and Trey Boley plays free safety for us, and he's a big physical kid back there. He does a good job, and our leading tackler is Bryson Henry, and he had 16 tackles again the other night. So he's doing all he can, and we were down. We didn't have the Honeycutt kid this past week, and so some guys really stepped up, and Dixon and Garza, and did a really good job for us up front, and just playing hard. And we have a young freshman that's doing a really good job, Jordan Richards, up front too. So I'm proud of those guys, and we got another kid that started both ways for us that didn't play football last year, and Jeremy Cole, but he stepped in as a tight end this week and outside linebacker, and played really, really hard, really, really well for us. So I'm proud of those guys. We got a few injuries that took us out of the game, that's just part of the game too. So no excuse there. But our kids they're playing really hard. Our offensive line guys are playing hard, and J.C. Garmany is doing, and Cole Kirby and Tristan Ruiz are really playing hard for us. So we're trying to figure it out, and I think we get a little bit closer and closer every week.
Coach, you guys taking on Aniana now. They're the second winningest team in state's history, I believe, overall wins. I think they're right behind T.R. Miller, but it's like less than 5 away or something like that. Team rich with tradition. They got Coach, I'll think of his name, Phil Phillips over there right now is a really good coach. They got a really good team. They've had some big wins and some big losses this year, but just what have you seen from Aniana on film when you watched them?
Yeah, they been kind of different each week. Against Cherokee, they had the lead most of the game, had a chance to really win that game, and lost it late. And I think Coach Phillips' son is doing a really good job at quarterback, and his arm talent is really good. So and they got against Cherokee, they had guys that went up and got it, and they were winning the 50-50 ball a lot. But then last week they were predominantly run football team, and they got a young freshman kid back there, wears number 1, that he's gotten better and better and better every week. So, and he's a handful. So we'll have to do all we can to control him. And but they've got a kid that the last 2 years has really stood out. He wears number 53. He plays on the offensive line. He plays guard, and he also plays everywhere on the defensive front. They flip him on the defensive front a lot, but he's a real high energy competitor. He's a really good football player. So you got to know where he is all the time. And but yeah, they're just like a young football team that keeps getting better. So they pose a lot of problems for sure.
Coach, when you see the guys out there, we talked about this earlier, but still competing, playing their guts out for you, man, how proud does that make you as a head coach to see the guys still giving effort and through everything, not asking any questions, still working their tail off for you?
I'm proud of that, and we have to talk about it a lot. That that's the expectation, and anything less, then we got to find somebody that will. So our kids, and that's what we do all this for. Is just. And we've harped on it since I knew that if we're not talented enough to not play hard. So if we're ever going to be competitive, our effort has got to be phenomenal. And so our kids keep doing that, and I'm proud of that. I really am. I just we just that's got to be the expectation. We just got to continue to get after it, and then some good things will happen. And we got to do it for 48 minutes. We have a couple lapses throughout a game that, and it's every football game that 4 or 5 plays make the difference. And the other night there was about 4 or 5 plays that made the difference. And if we're there in the right spot, the difference probably goes to us. The advantage goes to us. But hats off to Southside. They found a way to make those plays and played really well against us.
I thought it was a pretty even matchup. Like you said, it's 4 or 5 plays.
Yeah,
it's crazy. You've been doing this a long time. How do you get those 4 or 5 plays? I mean, I know you've been doing this a long time.
Yeah,
it's the magic question, I guess.
It is the magic question, and you just got to continue to work and continue and just hope that through your effort it puts you in the right place. Gotcha. And so sometimes it takes you out of there, and it'll balance out. Right now it seems to be leaning hard the other way, but it'll balance out, and once we start getting all 11 guys doing it every single play, and some of those bounces will balance out. And we got to quit being our own worst enemy as far as turnovers go. And but when you run the ball 65 times a game, you're probably going to fumble it. We just can't overcome it. You know what I mean? So we got to figure out how not to fumble it. So and that's crazy. I tell our kids, and I told them this week, and nobody's brought one in now. I tell our kids, if you find somebody in the newspaper that wins a turnover battle and loses a game, I'll give you $5. Well, nobody's brought one in yet. Like it's just a stat that stands out in every football game, except for us. The last 2 weeks, we've won the turnover battle and lost the game.
That's wild.
Yeah, so we've got to fix that. We got to find a way that when we do get that turnover to capitalize on it. And the other night we get some turnovers and go 3 and out and punt it right back to them. So we got to find a way to do that and give ourselves a chance, and we will. It's just it's just a learning curve and a growing process. And and unfortunately, in the region that we play in, you're not afforded a game against a bad team to figure it out. So unfortunately for our guys, they got to figure it out against an Aniana who's second most winning program in the state. So that makes it difficult. But again, I tell our kids all the time, I wouldn't want to play in a region any different because every Friday night matters. It's important to those communities. Yeah. And so they're big crowds and they're a great atmosphere. And why would you not want to play in front of those crowds?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, y'all's region's like Russian roulette.
It is.
I mean, it's every week you can't sit back and say, well, this week we're just going
to rest anybody.
Yeah.
There is none of that.
There's none of that in this region. Well, Coach, I always like to kick it back to you for final thoughts before we shut it down.
Yeah, I think just like the other night, I told you that our kids are worth going to watch, and our community should be proud of them because they're playing really, really hard. We're not playing mistake-free, but we're playing really, really hard, and they're working hard, and they're doing all the we've eliminated some things that were issues in our program, and we're only going to get better and better. So I just hope that they continue to support them and be there for our guys.
Coach, I appreciate you sitting in with us. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
All right.